But there's also a lot of questioning that comes from Muslims. Aren't we supposed to be merciful? Aren't we supposed to show the moral high ground? Aren't we supposed to be different? And the answer to all of those questions is of course. However, sometimes the misapplication of the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ not only misrepresents him ﷺ, but it actually blurs the clarity that we're supposed to have in this moment. And so let's start with one thing before talking about the specific incident. I remember a few years ago when Christchurch, New Zealand had the horrible terrorist attack on 50 plus Muslims in their masajid over there. And many Muslims expressed that it felt more real to them because it's New Zealand and this looks like a masjid in America. This is not one of those Muslim countries where you have masjids getting blown up routinely in Iraq and in Syria and in Yemen. And no, this is different. It felt too close. And that was fitri. That was natural. That something felt too close. And because of the natural human component that rocks you a bit more when it feels closer, that can be used as an opportunity to open up your eyes to a reality that maybe you weren't paying too much attention to. And so in general, when America looks at itself, and hopefully it looks at itself and recognizes the horrible state that we're in right now, the mass shootings that are daily, the victims are getting younger, the shooters are getting younger, and the constant gun violence and the constant innocent death and the lack of safety on a subway or on a street or in a school or in a church or in a masjid or whatever it may be, all of that should be used to say that all of this is terrible. All of this is something to mourn as a state of the country, but also to open up our eyes to the reality that as America has fostered a culture of violence domestically, this is what America is creating abroad as well. We put into elements the worst forms of political violence everywhere, all the time as a country. And so you can't diagnose and solve what's near without paying attention to what's seemingly far. Open your eyes to a greater reality, and that will help you gain more perspective. If anything, that will broaden your empathy, not lessen it. That will make your mercy more well-rounded and allow you to have a deeper and better perspective rather than a narrow perspective that's limited to something that feels too close to home for you. SubhanAllah, think about how problematic those words are for us as an ummah. Humanity as an ummah of Muhammad ﷺ, too close to home. So here's the thing. There is something to say that when people see a violent death, it's hard not to feel a fitri, a human sense of devastation. That this is terrible when you see something like that. And again, for the proper disclaimer, I don't condone that type of violence here or anywhere, right? But for people to say or feel a sense that this is terrible, no matter how terrible the person was, it feels terrible because from a fitri perspective, we're human beings, we've been created that way that when we see blood spill, we're supposed to feel a natural sense of repulsion. That's who we've been created to be. But I want to offer the following two things. That fitra will have us respond both in regards to our proximity to someone's life or our proximity to their death. What do I mean by that? Remember when Kobe Bryant died? There were other people in the helicopter too. No one remembers their names. Why? Because our kids and those of us who were watching basketball or who knew Kobe Bryant from afar, right? But we felt like, especially any cultural icon, you felt like you knew someone in life. Therefore, their death rocks you in a different way. And so proximity to someone's life allows you to magnify the tragedy that happens to them, or proximity to the circumstances of their death, even if you didn't know them, the fitra, right? When you see a human being bleeding out on the side of the road, I would expect you to have the mercy and to say, this is terrible, and want to do something, not to go up to that person and to ask them about anything else except for how can I help you and how can I save your life, and let me call 911, right? And do what I can to stop you from bleeding out. The thing about Palestinians is they've been robbed of both in the American imagination. They've been robbed of proximity to life and dehumanized in their existence and in their living, and their stories made distant, just as all of America's victims of political violence. And they're dehumanized in death. And so it should be said that those who have the nerve to talk about political violence today, after 2 years of being deniers of the worst manifestation of political violence, which is genocide, should be called out and condemned for their hypocrisy. They're the ones that should be on the defense.